When most players think of Skyrim, they imagine the great cities, Whiterun with its bustling market and Dragon's Reach towering above the plains, Solitude perched majestically on its arching stone, or Windhelm frozen in time, filled with history and strife. But Skyrim is more than its urban centres. Some of its most striking stories lie not in its crowded streets, but in the forgotten margins. The edges of its map where only wind and silence remain. This is one such place, sitting on the far northeastern border of Skyrim, high among the snowdrifts near the mountain passes into Morrowind. It is one of the most desolate and haunting locations in the game. Few players ever find it unless they are deliberately exploring, and fewer still linger long enough to contemplate its meaning. Yet what it represents is profound. A secluded memorial to those who tried to flee Skyrim's turmoil, only to find death waiting for them at the threshold of escape. Refugees' Rest lies at Skyrim's northeastern edge near Windhelm, tucked in the mountains that divide Skyrim from Morrowind. The road to it is not a road at all, but a winding climb, dotted with ice wolves and the occasional frost troll. Unlike major destinations in Skyrim, there are no quest markers that draw you here, no NPC guiding you, no carriage or path pointing the way. You must find it on your own, either through curiosity, map scanning, or sheer accident. This geographic seclusion is essential to its character. Skyrim is full of ruins and dungeons, but most are tied to quests or loot that compel exploration. Refugees' Rest is different. It sits like a ghost on the edge of the world. Its very location reinforces its meaning. It was a last stop for desperate people, those fleeing Skyrim's dangers or seeking safety in Morrowind, only to perish just short of their goal. The snowy peaks surrounding the site only heighten the isolation. The wind howls, the visibility drops, and you are reminded that Skyrim's northern reaches are places where nature itself is hostile. If the refugees did not die by violence, the cold itself could have claimed them. The physical details of Refugees' Rest are deceptively simple. At the centre is a broken stone monument, resembling a ruined watchtower or marker, now surrounded by snow and bones. Scattered around are numerous skeletons, many of them lying unceremoniously in the snow, as if abandoned where they fell. There are signs of violence, bloodstains, rusted weapons, and broken shields. It is not the quiet passing of travellers lost to the cold, but a massacre, preserved by the frozen mountain air. There's one journal entry, no notes, no quest to explain exactly what happened here, but the name Refugees' Rest offers enough. These were not soldiers or raiders, they were civilians, people fleeing something. From what? Possibly the chaos of Skyrim's civil war, or coming from Morrowind, or even the eruption of Red Mountain that devastated Morrowind decades before. The exact event doesn't matter so much as the message. These people were seeking safety, and they never reached it. The absence of a narrative explanation only makes the site more powerful, like the Dead Lovers Camp or Refugees' Rest's own sister sites of silent tragedy. Its story is told entirely through environment. What you see is what you get, and what you feel is your own. What makes Refugees' Rest stand out is the silence. Skyrim is rarely still. You can hardly walk a few steps without encountering wolves, bandits, hunters, or random travellers. Even the most ruined tombs echo with the sounds of Draga groaning or skeletons rattling. But Refugees' Rest is different. More often than not, when you arrive, the only sounds are the wind and your own footsteps crunching on the snow. This silence is unsettling because it contrasts so heavily with the violence suggested by the corpses scattered around. The site feels abandoned not just by people, but by time itself. It is this silence that makes it feel secluded and abandoned. The massacre here was total. No survivors remained to bury the dead. No historians came to record the tragedy. No bandits returned to loot what was left. The place is empty, ignored, and forgotten. It exists as a memorial only by accident. Its very name, a cruel reminder that there is no rest here, only endless isolation. Refugees' Rest is not only physically secluded, it is also narratively secluded from the rest of Skyrim's stories. You can play hundreds of hours of Skyrim and never know it exists. It is not tied to quests like Helgen, not a ruin of Nordic kings like Labyrinthian, not even a haunted curiosity like Frostflow Lighthouse. It exists outside of the mainstream of the game. This abandonment feels symbolic. Skyrim is full of tragedies, but most are tied to quests or legends that give them meaning. Refugees' Rest, by contrast, is about those who were forgotten. These were not heroes, adventurers, or warriors. They were ordinary people whose deaths were neither glorious nor recorded. Their seclusion, combined with their isolation, makes them more haunting. They remind us that Skyrim is not just a land of epic stories. It is also a land where countless small lives are lost without recognition. While Skyrim is dotted with tragic sights, Refugees' Rest is unique in its combination of seclusion, abandonment, and scale. The Dead Lovers Camp is intimate, telling the story of two people. Frostflow Lighthouse is chilling, tied to a family destroyed by Charus, with journals spelling out their doom. The abandoned prison holds echoes of injustice and forgotten captives. But Refugees' Rest tells the story of many. The number of skeletons strewn across the site suggests more than a dozen of the dead. And unlike Frostflow or the prison, there is barely any written records other than one journal. Their story is somewhat silenced, erased, and left to rot under the snow. This makes Refugees' Rest feel more like a graveyard than a location. It is the only site in Skyrim where you feel like you are walking through a battlefield that was not fought between armies, but against fate itself. From the player's perspective, stumbling upon Refugees' Rest is memorable because it feels so out of place. Skyrim's world is designed to reward exploration, but most rewards come in the form of loot or quests. Here, there is nothing material to gain. The reward is emotional, the unease of finding a forgotten tragedy and the sense of being the only witness left alive. The Dragonborn, a figure destined to alter the fate of the world, is reduced to the role of silent mourner, wandering through the bones of those who could not escape. This shift in perspective is powerful. It reminds the player that Skyrim's story is bigger than the Dragonborn, bigger than dragons, and bigger than quests. It is also the story of ordinary people, and the tragedies that unfold beyond the scope of legend. And yes, there is one chest here, but the reality is it's only concealing the true narrative of it all. In the end, Refugees' Rest is more than a location. It is a meditation on loss, on abandonment, and on stories that are never told. It sits on the edge of Skyrim like a scar, where desperate people met their end and were left to be forgotten. But in being found by the player, this place gains a kind of afterlife. The Dragonborn becomes the sole witness to their tragedy, the one person who pauses long enough to recognize their fate. It is in that act of recognition that the site's power lies. Refugees' Rest is not the grandest or most famous site in Skyrim, but it may be its most haunting. It is the place where seclusion itself becomes a story, where silence speaks louder than dialogue, and where the player is reminded that some tragedies are never meant to be solved. They are simply meant to be remembered. And that is why Refugees' Rest deserves the title as the most abandoned place in all of Skyrim.